Okay, we're going to start with political parties. And I've put these symbols up here. The elephant is a symbol of the Republican Party, and the donkey is a symbol of the Democratic Party, so make sure you get that in your notes. And all a political party is a group of people who seek to control government through the winning of elections and holding of public office. So basically, what parties do is one, they govern. Um, when we start looking at Congress and the way it's set up, everything in Congress is set up on party lines. And most of the business they conduct is done in a partisan way. Most of the people who are in the Republican Party strongly support the issues that the Republicans do, and they very rarely vote against that political party, and the same with the Democrats. They are very loyal to that party, so they are very partisan. Sometimes you'll see them work together on a particular issue, and they'll actually use the term bipartisan, that this is a bipartisan piece of legislation, which means people from both parties are going to support it. The next thing they do is nominate candidates, and really this is probably their number one job, is to make sure that they have candidates for their political party, and the goal is to beat the other side. So the Republicans try to nominate people who can beat the Democrats, and the Democrats try and nominate someone who can beat a Republican. So they work together to get these people elected. The next thing they do is inform and activate supporters, so that you'll get phone calls from people telling you, when election day is, and please come out and support our candidate. You'll see signs everywhere. You'll see flyers and buttons and all of this, and basically they'll put out, this is how we stand on the particular issues, and they will criticize why you shouldn't vote for the other guy. The watchdog function is the fourth function, and I put party and power in there because it's the function of the watchdog to watch who's in the White House. And so the White House is the party in power. So since Barack Obama is in the White House and he is the President of the United States and he is a Democrat, the Democrats are the party in power. So the party out of power is responsible for this watchdog function. And what they do is basically watch over the party in power and make sure the president isn't doing anything they're not supposed to. So once again, the party that holds the White House is the party in power, and currently that's the Democrats. Divided government, when one or both houses of Congress are controlled by the opposite party. So here I have a picture of the Capitol. This is where Congress conducts its business. On one side, the House of Representatives does its business. On the other side, the Senate does. And we're going to end up talking about, in the next set of notes, the four eras of political parties. And we are currently in the fourth era, and it is the era of divided government. And basically what that means is that either one or both houses of Congress are controlled by the opposite political party. So we have the Democrats who are in control of the White House and the presidency. And currently the House of Representatives, because there are a majority of Republicans, is controlled by the Republicans. The Senate, the majority is with the Democrats, and so the Democrats hold that. So we currently have a divided government. It doesn't have to be both houses of Congress that are opposite. It just has to be one. So the president is a Democrat, the Senate is Democrat, but the House of Representatives is a Republican. So we currently have divided government. Two major political parties, and I put the symbols there again, the donkey and the elephant. The first two political parties were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. When we look at the Constitution, we're not actually, when we look at political parties, we're not going to look at the Constitution because there's nothing in the Constitution about political parties. These were created after the fact, and it's only because even though they didn't want differences and they wanted everyone to come together around this new government, you are going to have people who dislike what the government is doing, and you're going to have people who like it. And so that's exactly what happened. You had those people who were in favor of this new document, this new government, and they were the Federalists. John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, just to name a few, were very much in favor of this strong central government. The Democrats and Democratic Republicans were born out of the anti-federalists, and so Thomas Jefferson was in favor of a much weaker central government and wanted the rights, or as many rights, to still stay with the states. George Washington completely against political parties, and what he wanted to do is to try and bring Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson together. So what he did was he appointed Alexander Hamilton as his Secretary of Treasury, And he also appoints Thomas Jefferson as his Secretary of State. So we have a president who has appointed two men who are at opposite ends of what we will talk about that's called the political spectrum. They do not agree on anything. And so every time they would have a meeting, George Washington typically tended to side with Alexander Hamilton. And it got to the point where Thomas Jefferson was really tired of sitting in these meetings and being ignored. So he eventually does resign as Secretary of State. So when we start looking closer, the Federalists would actually be what we consider a Democrat today. Federalists were in favor of a strong central government. The Democrats today are in favor of stronger central government. This idea of taxing to redistribute the wealth, spending programs, they're in favor of that. And the Republicans would actually be more in line with Thomas Jefferson's Democratic Republicans, that eventually they get rid of the word Republican and are just called the Democrats. So the Thomas Jefferson's Democrats would be associated with the Republicans today. And I put GOP there because sometimes when you hear the news or read something, they'll refer to the Republican Party as the GOP. And that stands for Grand Old OLD Party. And once again, just like Jefferson's Democrats, the Republicans of today are in favor of a smaller central government, more control at the state level, fewer services, but lower taxes. And when you look in a textbook, it says, literally, we have a two-party system just because we have a two-party system. We started out with those two groups, and that's just kind of the way it's been by tradition. Many people, and this is kind of another reason why, I guess, is they feel like if they vote for a third-party candidate, that's going to be a wasted vote. So it kind of perpetuates this two-party system. That if I vote for the Libertarian or the Independent, it really doesn't matter because they're not going to win anyway. So why vote for them? So everyone thinks that, so obviously they never do. Multi-party system. This is a system where several major and many lesser parties exist and compete to win elections. And what I've done here is put the political parties for England. They have a multi-party system, and all of these political parties in England are represented in their parliament. So in order for them to get anything done, it would be difficult if they didn't work together. So they collectively work together to form coalitions. And a coalition is just an alliance of several groups that come together. So you might get 4 of these who agree on a particular issue, and they join on that and they vote together so that they can have a majority. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to do that. You need to understand the difference between a majority and a plurality. If you have 100 people voting, a majority is going to be 51. But if we have all of these different political parties or all of these parties and people running from these parties, then no one is ever going to get a majority because you're going to split these 100 votes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways. So it's possible if it's split right that no one of these parties is that popular that you could literally split that and no one gets 51%. And so then what they do is they would look at the plurality. Which one of these has the highest percentage? So if they split it and the conservatives have 31% and that's the highest percentage out of all of them, they would have the plurality. They wouldn't have a majority because if you have 100 people voting, you'd need 51 for a majority. But they would have the plurality, which is the largest number of votes. So make sure you understand the difference between those. A one-party system you would be familiar with is like a dictatorship. When you have one party, you really have no party system because everybody's going to vote for the same person. And I put some famous dictators down here. You know, Adolf Hitler, I mean, seriously, you have the Nazi Party, but then you have the Nazi Party. So there's really no other party that you have available to you. Sometimes the United States has, there are a modified one-party system. About 25% or 1/4 of all the states are dedicated or devoted to one political party. Here in Indiana, we are primarily a Republican state. Now, we did in his first election vote for Barack Obama, but Indiana had not voted for a Democrat since Lyndon Johnson ran right after Kennedy's assassination. So it's been quite a while since Indiana. So Indiana is fairly predictable, and so that's why they say Some of these states are on a modified one-party system because you basically know which political party is going to